went to preach at a church, usually like 200-300 people. He arrived 30 minutes early, and when he got there was no one there. 15 till, no one's there. 5 till, the minister shows up, no one there. 11 o'clock shows up, no one's there. He said to the pastor, didn't you tell anybody didn't you tell him I was coming? And the pastor said, well, I tried to keep it a secret, but evidently the word got out. And so I kind of felt like that because several people are missing tonight.
Fall break, lots of people at the beach.
Oh, fall break's next week.
No, there's several weeks.
Yes, several weeks.
Oh, several weeks in a row. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to call it triangles, not just triangling or triangulation. I'm just going to call it triangles. And a lot of you know I like to have some fun, so let's have some fun if we start with it. So if you're the Beatles singing Southern Gospel, this is what you would look like. Does anyone, any last words for your old boss? Yeah, who's thinking outside the box now, Gary? Not sure what religion her religion is, but let us pray for her. God's word, final, infallible, and forever. Revised edition. Now, I'm gonna take a personal moment. I gotta brag. This is my daughter's I got married. I'll show you the Stephen Ministry, our small group, but I'm gonna show the rest of you. This is just before I walked her down the aisle.
Wow.
So, and then thanks to Mike, I got a new type of watermelon, and the largest watermelon I've 45 pounds.
Wow.
And it's here. Okay, now we're talking about triangles. I'm going to show you a little skit. It's 4 triangles here. See if you can identify the 4 triangles. Anyway, that's a fun thing, and we'll talk about triangles as we go through this. First of all, we're going to do 2 things now before you get infected or influenced by what I say, okay? The first thing, you need a white sheet of paper, a pen, and the book or folder underneath this so you can have something back to write on, okay? All right, now I want you to make 8 squares. And in 6 of those squares, put these as titles for those 6. And then the other 2, just put other. And then in, like with family, the square in family, I want you to put initials of people who are in your family. And friends, I just want you to put initials of people who are your friends.
8?
I'm sorry?
8 squares?
8 squares.
8 squares.
8 squares, yeah. And then neighbors, work relationships, groups, etc., etc., okay? Now, the reason for initials is this is just for you, and it's save time, because we have 45 minutes at the most. Actually, now 30. So, take 3 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay, let's put that aside. If you want to keep doing it, if you get bored, just keep adding to it, okay? Now, second thing is I put some sheets of paper on the inside row. When you pick them up, don't look at them. Take them upside down, okay? And I'll explain why in just a second. So if you'll pass them out to people in your row and hold them upside down where you cannot see it. This is going to be what you call like those personality type inventories. And the research shows that your absolute best answer is the first thought that comes to your mind. So in a second, we're going to look at this together, and I want you to think about the first thought that comes to your mind. That's your right answer. Because if you think about it, you might put down what should I do? Or what is it like? You start analyzing, you try to figure, what do people want to hear? That's the wrong answer. You get your best answer, and this is for you, no one's going to look at it. This will help you see something in a second, okay? This is about 2 basic needs, separateness and closeness. Now, if you will, take the yellow one and turn it over. This is going to be your answer sheet. And you're going to see on the purple sheet a statement. And what you're going to do is put an X that's either very much like me, somewhat like me, a little bit like me, not much like me. Those are your answers. Okay? We're going to do this in 3 minutes. I'll take you through the first one, and then you're going to do the rest of it. And we have to do it very quickly, okay? Because I want the best answer. You want the best answer. All right, now turn the purple sheet open. Let's look at the first one. All right? Need love from my parents, persons of authority. Then the more descriptive, this is to the right of it. A strong need to be loved by one's parents and persons in authority, to be reassured that one is loved, accepted in one's family, or by persons in authority. What comes to your mind then? Put an X there. Is it very much like me, somewhat like me, a little bit like me, not much like me? Okay? Put that X there. Now do the same thing with 2 through 14. And like I said, you've got 3 minutes. That means you got to read quickly. That prevents you from doing an analysis. Okay? Go for it. Now, everything on this column, very much like me, is a 4. That's your score for that, whichever number is. And 3, 2, 1. You see those at the top there? That's your score. On the blue sheet of paper, whatever you put for 2, put it there. Whatever you put for 5, there. 1, 2, 3, or 4, 6, etc. And then the same thing over there. After you put them all down, add them up, that's your total separateness score, and that's your total closeness score. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay, everyone done? All right, now just put that aside. And how many of y'all been Stephen minister 7 years or longer? Raise your hand. Okay, you may have been here the night when I presented this next little piece here, okay? So the question is, what do you see? All right? If you were here 7 years longer, don't answer, okay? Because you may remember. So, what do you see? The rest of y'all tell me, what do you see? Health. What else do you see? Heal. And? Heat. Yeah, you can rearrange the words. See heat. See all. Okay? Heat. Yeah. All right, now, I want you to notice something. What you're talking about, what you're saying is what you see is really what you're focused on. But what you see is far more than the word health. You see the word health underneath this question with my finger pointing to it. It's on this monitor and my arm is connected to this fantastic body. You have all this in front of you and the people in the back see the back of you. We see a lot more in our caregiving relationships with our care receivers. A lot of times we get focused on the issue that brought you together, but that may not be the underlying issue. So we have to look at what are we not seeing? What are we seeing, but what are we not seeing? Oh, I forgot to bring it in here. It's back here in a second. All right, now this is my Bible. You all describe the Bible from this side. What does it look like to you? Brown. What else?
Ripped.
Ripped. What else?
It's a rectangle.
Rectangle. Okay. Has some markers in it, yeah.
Well used.
Well used. Okay. What do y'all see on this side?
Thin.
Same thing?
I'm not sure it's a Bible.
No,
It's a book.
thin and gray.
All right. What side is the blue binding is on your side?
Left.
It's on the left side. What side is the blue binding on here?
Right.
Well, which is right? See, there are 2 points of view. Now, if someone was facing directly, they wouldn't see any brown, they just see gold leaf. And from where I'm sitting, I'm just seeing the binding, okay? There are different points of view. And that's one of the frustrations of being a Stephen minister, in that we have a care receiver, but we only hear the point of view of the care receiver. We don't hear the other person in the triangle talking to us, okay? And just as one question you might ask the care receiver is, if that person were here, what would that person say about this issue? What would that person say about what you just said? Okay? And you begin to get another perspective. That's one way of getting to what you can see. Murray Bowen, back in the 1950s, was doing psychiatry at a mental hospital working with schizophrenics. And at that time, people believed it was all the mother's fault for schizophrenia. Now, since then, we know it's not the case. Relationships can exaggerate the schizophrenic issue, but he began to notice that as he talked to the mother, and then the child walks into the room to talk, the mother's attitude changes. Or talk to the child, and the mother walks in, and the child begins to change how he or she talks. And then if the father walks in for a visit, or if the other siblings, or even as you look through the one-way window, if the person who brought the dietitian walks in with food, and the two people were talking, here goes the dietitian, all of a sudden they changed their attitude. And what he began to develop was what we now call as the Bowen family emotional system, okay? And what he concluded was that all of life is in an emotional and reactive relationship. Now we think, but all of life has emotions, and we're stuck together in those relationships. You've seen fish, schools of fish, they're heading this way, all of a sudden they head this way, and then they head this way, or they split and they come back together. Same thing with birds. And they're fused in their relationship. There is no one giving commands to do that. They just react to each other. The military, I grew next to Fort Campbell, and they say that the drill sergeants teach. How many of y'all were in the military? Okay, y'all tell me if this is true. That the drill sergeants say, you are a unit, you are one unit, you're a team, you're one person, you work together, and you no one left behind, right? Okay, so you react more than you think, okay? Then, how many of y'all saw last year's Tennessee-Alabama football game? Yeah. Sorry, Cheryl. But what amazed me about the game was when the game was over, all the fans went on the field, right? 100,000 people from Tennessee was cheering as if they won the game. But they didn't win the game. They didn't play. When you're watching a game, you're just emotionally tied to a team or two or whatever. You have emotional connection. The ultimate emotional unit is the family. That's just, I won't go any further with that, but look at your sheet of paper in which you wrote names down. You have relationships by groupings. This is to say that just a thought in your mind will have an effect on someone else, somewhere else, okay? In our relationships with our care receiver, we have all these people in our lives that are affecting us. Even triangles going on at that very moment, as well as the care receiver has triangles going on in their lives. And it just shoots through the community. At my last church, Bill and Judy Clowns were very high-profile people. Their son had not been to church in 10 years because his son lived in North Carolina. He was getting married, and Bill and Judy were about to go to North Carolina when they were packing to visit the new in-laws. And as they were packing, they get a phone call. The fiance's family had a fire that burned the house down, and the grandmother died. That immediately sent shockwaves to Bill and Judy. They had never met the family, didn't know anything about them, yet the emotions of the son shot to them. And then as they talked about it and told us at church, they got emotional. Guess what happened? The people in the church started crying. Even now I get choked up about it. One thing that happens someplace is connected to other places, okay? So in your caring relationship, you have to ask the question, what's going on in my life? What's going on in the other person's life? Not just the issue, because that's affecting how you'll talk about it. So triangles involves 3 people in a relationship. Now in this triangle, there are 2 people usually in a calm, and then the third person is on the outside. Now, Susan, let's pretend that I'm A, you're C, okay? And you and I are really good friends. I mean, we're real good friends, we get along, everything's fine. But then all of a sudden you want to do something I don't like. And I get upset. The tendency for the majority of people, the tendency is then to go tell someone about it. So I go to you. Do you know what Susan did? You know what she thinks? Can you believe this about Susan? And I go to every one of you. What's happened? I am passing my anxiety on to the rest of you. Here's an example of that. Staff relations begin to show signs of strain. I'm stupid. Here is a person triangulating us, whoever's looking, against this person. Okay? Anxiety is spread out. And so the anxiety shifts to other people. And then from that, these other people are upset because we're upset, but then they get upset at the initial person, okay? And that's unhealthy, that is just not healthy. And as a result, there may be intentional or unintentional character assassination. You see that with families in which they go through a divorce and someone tells the family, and all of a sudden the family is all upset at that person, or trying to get a job, everyone's upset, whatever, you get this anxiety that's out there. And there's no healing that can take place because of the anxiety, right? No healing takes place. Now, if healing occurs, now let's say I go back to Susan, and we work it out. You all don't know that, do you? You don't know that, because the anxiety is still out there. So if you're in such a situation, what do you do? What do you do if you are A? If you have anxiety about Susan or anybody, what do? First of all, pray and have the emotional maturity to keep the anxiety between you and that person. Okay? If that doesn't work, if you anxiety, you need help, the next thing you do, seek a mature person who will be honest and objective with you. Okay? It's important to be honest and objective. Not take your side or the other person's side. You got it, because you can be wrong, you know. So you got to be objective. Then, if B will talk to you and see, make sure B doesn't take sides, okay? If B goes with us and talk with Susan and me, you don't take sides. Now, I lost my train of thought there. Why is that important? Because I could be wrong and the other person's right. But that's what you do in a regular triangular situation. Now, what do we do if we are B? When someone comes to us because they're anxious, you pray and listen to help that person calm down. I can't tell you the value of listening to calm a person down. Because if the person's upset, they want to be calmed down. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. And I've been amazed at the number of people who, when you just listen to, like this one lady, just found out her boyfriend that she's dated for 3 years got engaged to someone else that she didn't know was dating. She was in tears. An hour later, just by listening to her, she calmed down, and guess what she said? Well, I guess it's going to be like that. He's not worth me. And it all came purely by listening. Most cases, it's not like that. Okay, that's simple. But listen, pray, listen. But then coach A to come up with a way to resolve the issue. And then if necessary, you go, but don't take sides. Let the two of them seek their own solution. Now, what if you are B and you're a Stephen minister? We don't go to that person, do we? What do we do? What do we do? First of all, pray and listen to A, help the person calm down. Then ask appropriate questions to guide A to seek a solution of conflict with C. Okay? Simple enough? If they need someone to go with them, recommend a pastor, recommend someone who's trained in coaching, and because that's not what we've been trained to do. We pass it off to somebody else. Okay? Now, here's just something, an interesting note, how complicated life can get. A triangle is 3 people, right? But if you have 4 people like in a skit, 4 people make 4 triangles. How many triangles come with 5 people? Anyone want to guess? 9. 9 triangles. Life gets more complicated. It doesn't go up just 1. Guess how many people there are with 6 people creating a triangle? There are 25 triangles. So more people involved, the more complex the emotional dynamics are in play, and they become interlocking triangles. So, how do we handle all this? This is where Mary Bowen says you deal with the issue called differentiation of self, because we are emotional people, but we're also thinking people, and we have to find a way to think to take over the emotions. Okay? How do we get to that? First of all, total separation is 100%. This is his self. In emotional theory, squares are guys, circles are women. So they touch, but there's a lot of separation there. This is where you value the other person, you accept the other person. Doesn't matter if the person is Republican, Democrat. Doesn't matter if the person is for this issue or that issue. Doesn't matter if anything else. You value the other person and you accept the person and you accept who you are. Okay? But that is very rare. The very opposite is fusion. Fusion is where there is no self, no differentiation. And this is where you have two people who look alike, talk alike, act alike, wear the same clothes even, dress their kids looking alike. These are people who, what do you want to do tonight? Well, I don't care, what do you want to do? That's up to you. No, it's up to you. They can't make decisions. And then, if one gets sick, the other gets sick. If one dies, the other will die fairly shortly after that. They are so fused that it affects, whatever affects one affects the other to that extent. And again, that's what you see in nature with fish, birds, butterflies, horses, deer, cows, all that. Now, 50% is a great goal. Now, I tried to create what you call the pseudo self with the diagram, and I couldn't. The pseudo self, make a line right through here. The red is his self, the blue is her self. The pseudo self is this little section here in which you're not your total self. That means if Kathy wants to go shopping, and I really don't go with her, but I go with her anyway, and I'm begrudging it the whole time, I'm being a pseudo self, okay? If she goes with me to a ball game and she doesn't really want to go, that's in her pseudo self. Now, if I choose to go shopping because I want to, that's being me. If she chooses to go to because she wants to, that's being her. But the pseudo self is where a lot of people live. In reality, people are approximately 25% differentiated. That means we're 75% stuck emotionally on the average. Very rarely does anyone get above 25%. Okay? Now, let's look at your scores. Okay? And you're not going to tell me your score. All I'm going to ask you is this. How many of y'all had a closeness score higher than separation? Your number for closeness total is higher than separation. Raise your hand. Let's see that. Okay?
Wait just a minute.
Yeah, the first time I did
Even
this.
numbers? Is
Sorry?
the closeness the even numbers?
No, the closeness is on
The right, the blue sheet.
the blue sheet. The closeness is right here.
Right.
What you wrote here. You
I
added those
did it
up.
on the back. I didn't know.
Okay. All right. So my first time I did this, my closest score was probably, and yeah, I will cry at chick flicks. I will cry when I see these heartwarming stories. If someone needs help, I will bend over backwards. I volunteer to do things I shouldn't. But since I've done this, we go to separation. So how many have a higher separation score? Raise your hand. Okay. 3 people. Okay. Now, how many had equal score? Both 2, 3. Okay, good. Now, neither is better than the other. It's just where we are. Okay. But I can tell you, you want to go towards separation, and this is why. Wrong way. The greater the closest score, you'll have more anxiety, more relationship fusion, more emotional thinking fusion, more life problems, poor decisions, greater relationship troubles, greater concern about other person's opinions, and problems with boundaries and greater codependency. Okay?
But we're hoes.
I'm sorry? What did you say?
We're hoes.
The greater the separation score, less anxiety, less relationship fusion, better relationships, fewer life problems, less thinking, emotional fusion, better decision, less concern about others' opinions, better boundaries, less codependency. And after I learned this, I began to work on how to get to that point in which I'm less close, less fused, and more. So how do we do that? This is where you go, self-differentiation. You want to create a non-anxious presence. Pray and be aware of and manage your anxiety. Now what does that mean? The moment you start thinking about something that gets you upset or you worry or whatever, take a step back. Count to 10. The greater distance you have from that which stimulates your thoughts or your emotions to the point you make a decision, the better control you have over the emotions, the better control you have over the anxiety. And that's hard because you're really upset. Okay, take a step back, and count. And so that you want to get to the point you are responding, not reacting. So when your care receiver tells you something and it really gets you, well, take a step back, count to 10, because what's triggered there is something that you've evaluated from a relationship in the past with somebody else. There's a triangle there. So let's take a step back. What is the real situation going on here? Then, secondly, define yourself. Terry was a kid in my junior high group in Linden. His nickname was Goofy and Goof. And one day I said, "How'd you get that nickname?" He said, "Because I don't have any good looks, I'm overweight, I don't have any athletic ability, I'm not smart, I can't dance, I have everything going against me. The only way I can get people to laugh, be with me, and accept me is if I make them laugh." So he started calling me Goofy. I took him to junior high camp that summer. At junior high camp, the thing was free to be me. He, as well as all the other youth, were put in small groups with people they did not know. And there was no expectations of him. He didn't expect anything of himself, they didn't expect anything of him, etc. At the end of the week, he said to me, "This is the first time in my life I'm free to be myself. I did not have to meet somebody else's expectations." And that's a goal that each of us want, to be ourselves, right? Well, this a care receiver wants to receive that too, okay? So we have to, first of all, handle ourselves so we can pass that on to our care receivers. And then you have to stay connected. Now, Terry got that by not being with the group. When he got back home, he had to learn how to be himself with the group. We have to do that with our families. We have to do that we have to help our care receivers do the same thing. Now, very quickly, oops, wrong thing. Let's go to the family of origin work. Bowen discovered that if you're having an issue with anybody in the world, he says, concentrate on your relationship with people in your own family, bring healing within your own family, and it will transfer to those people. I was coaching a team of pastors on this, and one of the pastors, I'll just say her name is Melissa. Melissa was telling us about this church member she was having all kinds of trouble with. And she was so upset, so we just listened and listened and listened until we were sure she had calmed down. Because they just had a church fight at the board meeting. Well, so after she's calmed down, I said, "Is there anyone in your family that this lady reminds you of?" Her eyes got big, her mouth dropped, and said, "My aunt. That's exactly how my aunt is." And then we talked about it a while, and she said, "You know what? If I'm going to work this theory, I need to go work it out with my aunt." Well, that very next week, she went to see her aunt, said that they had a meal together. She'd never done that. And she found her aunt to be very pleasant. They got along very well. And so she did the same thing with this other lady, and they became best of friends at the church. I mean, that's an extreme example. Most things aren't like that. But that's what you do. You deal with your family of origin work first. And then you can better help your care receiver, because there's a triangle there. Now, very quickly, there are triangles with the inanimate. What does that mean? The inanimate are like phones, TV, hobby, games, work, church. When I first went through this training, there was a gentleman who was there and said, "You know what? My wife and I are having problems. And instead of talking, we watch TV at night. Or I work late so as to avoid talking with her. Instead of on the weekend, on Sundays, we both work at church to avoid talking with each other." That's a triangle to help avoid the real issues. Okay, you see how that happens? Okay, then you have what we call incomplete triangles. That's when a couple moves to a new city, there is no third person. An empty nest syndrome, the child is no longer at home. You both are now retired. You don't have anyone at work or outside the home. And then COVID-19 exaggerated all that. Why? Because you're isolated and no. Now, yeah, you can call, you can Zoom, but there's nothing like being with the person in person, right? Okay, now there's an awful lot here. John, you know the system. I know you're counseling. Anything y'all want to add, take away, or change what I said?
I
Anything?
think you did a great job with Bowen.
Is expressive okay?
Yeah.
All right, but my other question is, any questions for the rest of you about any of this? Okay, now I know I wasn't going to have time, so I had this printed off, and I didn't know it was going to be in this format. These are questions you can ponder about yourself and about your care receipt. So I'm going to pass these out to you. Whoa, was it clear as mud, or was it really clear? So grace and peace always flow in and through you as you live faith, show hope, and love all God's people. Amen.
Amen.